Ms. Stephanie, I will give you the floor for you to present and start on the presentation.
Thank you, Tina. Hi, everyone. It's great to hear you virtually through this webinar as we talk about an exciting topic, which is supervising and supervising with a coaching lens. So as Tina mentioned, I'm the Director for Curriculum and Instruction at Empath, which, as many of you know, is a nonprofit focused on helping families move towards economic self-sufficiency. And so my background at Empath is really in teaching as well as social work. And I started at Empath with our intergenerational focused programming, and so I did home visiting with whole families and coaching in that capacity, and moved on to supervised staff in that intergenerational program, and then now support supervisors by developing curriculum to help them continue learning with their teams and have a holistic parallel process to the way that we do the work at Empath. So this is something I'm really excited about to talk with you today, so I'm looking forward to a great conversation. And to follow suit in the questionnaire that we sent you to introduce yourselves, I'm also going to share something fun about our state. So Empath is in Boston, in Massachusetts, and so Massachusetts is the only state in the country that has a right to family shelter. So if you are a family, you have a right to either a hotel, motel room, or some type of congregate shelter while you get your feet on the ground, which is a fantastic fact about Massachusetts. And then my hope for today in the webinar is just to hear what you think about when we say supervision and how you hope to grow in this area and the ideas that you all generate through this conversation. So thank you for being a part of it. I'm now going to turn it over to Sam, who will introduce herself and keep it going. And then we'll come back and let you introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Sam Wolfson, and I'm thrilled to be here today and also share in this journey with you. So I am working at MDRC, and I'm providing technical assistance to the Oklahoma team on TANF. And my background is actually I'm a clinical psychologist and trained in early childhood, infant early childhood mental health. And I did start my career working with families who were on AFDC back in the day when that was a thing. And I'm really excited to be working on this project and thinking about coaching and working with you guys as you implement this program. So also in the spirit of doing our introductory activity, I'm actually going to put that up on the screen so you can see it.
Thank you.
I am in New York City. And I'm not as deep as Stephanie, because I thought, well, what's special about New York? And the only thing that came to my mind initially was, well, we've got this cool thing called the Empire, I was thinking about the Statue of Liberty, actually. So I would say that that's we're celebrating freedom, and hopefully that's a good thing. And what I'm hoping to get from this session is just to hear from everybody what you're thinking about in relation to supervising and coaching, and really to start observing my first observation of the ongoing building of a community, and I hope that we'll be able to enjoy that moving forward. So I'm going to pass it back to Stephanie as she kind of continues on with this activity with everybody else.
So thank you for the introduction, Sam. I think it's helpful for everyone to just understand where we're coming from in this work. And so what we're going to do is I'm just going to say the state, and then the representative from that state, as you decided, will help introduce the team that's on the call, because we've got a lot of people who have joined this webinar, which is really exciting. So based on the sheet that we sent around, please share the names of the people from your state that are joining us today, what county you represent, and something that you want us to know about your state. And it can be fun, it can be, more deep, so to speak, as Sam said. And so please share what you would like us to know about your state, and then what you want to learn and change or get out of the session today, just so that Sam and I can make sure to have some good learning goals for today. So in alphabetical order, so Alabama, you are up first. And
I just want to remind you that you probably need to do the little wave hand so they know to unmute you so you can share.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we have a Marsha Bentley on the line.
Yes, this is Marcia Bentley, and I'm a program specialist with the State Office of the Alabama Department of Human Resources. And we actually have, I believe, 17 people.
Wow.
We have, I'm sorry, what?
Go ahead.
And they're representing 4 counties and the state office. From Dallas County, we have Program Supervisor Patricia Thomas. From Mobile County, we have Program Manager Ursula McCants, Supervisors Kathy Kilpatrick, Raymond Lewis, Yvonne Simon, and Robin Crook. From St. Clair County, we have Supervisor Beverly Abbott. From Shelby County, we have Program Supervisor Vicki Letlow and Supervisor Brandy Galloway. From our state office, we have the Assistant Director of the Family Assistance Division, Avis Hunter, Program Manager Beverly Shields, Jobs Program Manager Fannie Ashley, Program Supervisor Elizabeth Walker, Field Staff Adrian Smith, Alita Bruce, Deborah Keaton, and me. And some interesting things about Alabama. Alabama has America's oldest Mardi Gras celebration and Veterans Day parade. And we have it all: mountains, lakes, rivers, sugar white beaches, and an eclectic mix of illiterates and intellectuals, philosophers and farmers, country music, and cool jazz. We have rattlesnake rodeos, medical innovation, space exploration, and, of course, football, and some of the nicest people in the world. And what we hope to gain from this webinar today, our answers mostly centered around motivation, communication, and leadership. We want to learn how to motivate workers to motivate clients so that everyone understands that change can be a good thing. Also, we want to learn techniques for improving communication between supervisors and workers, and therefore between workers and clients. We wish to learn different leadership styles, how to empower case managers to prepare individual clients for self-sufficiency by promoting a healthy families concept, and, of course, learn techniques for monitoring results.
Thank you so much, Marcia. I feel like you could be a spokesperson for the state of Alabama. That was excellent. And thank you for sharing your goals.
Thank you.
So next up is Missouri.
We have Ms. Jacinda.
Hi, yes. This is Jacinda Rainey, and I am from Missouri. And the counties that it's myself and Jennifer Heinrichs on the call today, so it's 2 of us from Missouri. The counties that we represent, we have 114 counties, plus the city of St. Louis that we represent. A couple of interesting facts about Missouri. We are one of 2 states that have an official state grape, and we also have the first public kindergarten in the U.S. that opened in St. Louis. And then lastly, we're one of 2 states that have the most bordering states. We share that with Tennessee, and we have 8. One of the things we're hoping to get more from and learn, we want to make sure we're encouraging coaching within our team so that it filters to our providers and partners and our participants. And so that's what we're hoping to get out of the session. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Jacinda. That's great. So thinking about supporting coaching not only for the families that you serve, but also the vendors that you're working with and the different people that you collaborate with. Thank you. Okay, next up is New Hampshire.
Ms. Wendy, you're on.
Thank you. I think we have around 13 folks on the call. I had written the names on the paper, but I can't see from here who actually is on the call. But we do have folks from state office, and we have folks from our contracted staff on the call. And some things about New Hampshire that are really cool is that we have a saying, as New Hampshire goes, so goes the nation. The tallest mountain in the Northeast, Mount Washington, and they recorded the 2nd highest surface wind speed of 231 miles per hour there. We also had the first astronaut, Alan Shepard Jr., and the first civilian in space, Christy McAuliffe. So I guess that says that we are fast and ready to go. And we had some good responses from folks about what they wanted to learn. And some of that was basically that we really want to put some of this into some practical application about how to utilize coaching with our staff. And so we're really eager to learn some practical tips today. So thank you for having us.
Great. Thank you, Wendy. So really, what are some skills you can even start implementing tomorrow in supervision? So hopefully we'll leave with something that you can really take away from today. Okay, next up, New Jersey.
Remember, the icon is at the bottom right for you to raise your hand.
Why don't we move on to the next state, and if New Jersey ends up joining, then they can filter in. So that would move on to Oklahoma. Okay, do I need to keep going? Maybe. So why don't we try South Dakota?
Hi, Brad. I see that you're on, but you're, I don't think you have audio. If you want, you can actually type in. Well, that's a lot to type in. Let's see. Brad, I only have you connected to audio to unmute you at this time. Also, with you, Ms. Angie Sam, I don't have audio to unmute you at this time. You might have to log back in. Is there another state, Ms. Stephanie, that we can probably move on to so they can have time to log back in? And okay, maybe, let's see. Okay, thank you so much. I will let you know if anything changes.
Sounds good. Last but certainly not least, West Virginia.
I have a Ms. Beverly on the phone. Can you hear me? Ms. Beverly? Ms. Beverly, I unmuted you. You're able, we can all hear you now.
So for some of these technical difficulties, I'm wondering if it continues, if we can do a text box option potentially, if that is a workaround.
Yeah, they can use the Q&A box. Since I know there was just so much information that they were providing, I didn't know if that would probably be a lot for you to kind of read off of, or let me see. I actually have Miss Angie on the phone now. Miss Angie, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. Okay, so we will go with this then. En parte washte napen chuzapo. For those of you that don't understand the beautiful Lakota language, good day. My name's Angie, and I greet you with a good heart and a warm handshake. And I am representing South Dakota today for you. So let's see. I don't know if Brad is on the call as well, but we had some scheduling conflicts, so I'm here representing South Dakota. Personally, I work in Region 2, which is Oglala, Lakota County, Jackson, and Bennett County with the TANF Works, but Alex has asked me to do all 4 regions of our state, which is basically the western half of our state. Some interesting facts about our state is we're often referred to as the land of infinite variety. It's reflected in everything from our weather to our economy. Our economy, our state symbols, it goes from agriculture to tourism to the service industry. We're home to 2 of the longest caves in this world. One of our caves, Jewel Cave, stretches more than 150 miles. And Wind Cave National Park is home to the 6th longest cave in the world. And that's also part of our creation story for the Lakota people. We boast more miles of shoreline than Florida, which is pretty astounding since we're a landlocked state. And that really talks about, how tourism is a significant contributor to our economic industry, where it's about $2 billion annually for our state, which is very good. And the one component that we hope to change or to get from this session, I think I've heard that echoed with Alabama and New Hampshire. Is one, how do we motivate our workers to motivate our customers? And some practical applications of how to coaching with the staff and monitoring how they're implementing the process. So that having some tools for the supervisors to provide feedback to the staff would be really helpful.
Great. Thank you so much, Angie, for that explanation of South Dakota, giving us a little insight into your state and also for sharing your goals, which you're right, they do map really nicely with the other ones. So any luck in hearing from Oklahoma, West Virginia, or New Jersey?
Stephanie, I have not had any more people with their hands up or to provide their feedback their state.
Not a problem at all. I think we've got a really good start going with our introductions, and if anyone joins, I can always do another raised hand approach. So thank you for sharing, and I'm going to pass the ball to you, Sam.
Sounds good. Okay. So I do want to share the goals, very quickly, the goals and our plan for today. And I appreciate everybody sharing so openly. I know it takes a little bit of time for the introductions, but it's worth it as we're building our community to get to know each other a little bit and just kind of hear what's special about what everybody's bringing to the table. So thank you for that. So one of our goals for this webinar and for the whole series is really to continue building this community and giving opportunities for you guys to support each other, because your experiences are profound, and I think you can be resources to each other in ways that those of us who are not working in the field can support you. So this is something we want to build on and take advantage of. We also want to give you a place to consider and think about your role as change agents, because what's happening is you're implementing something new into your system, and so this is a chance for us to kind of think together about what that means for you as supervisors and leaders and various places that you're working. We want to talk a little bit about some supervision approaches that are supportive for the coaching process, and then beginning today to start thinking about what we're going to describe as a toolkit to support coaching, and really spend more time on that in our second session, trying to hit on some of those practical strategies that people are talking about. But we will have you leave with something today that we hope will be able to take out to the field with you. So what we're going to do is just cover a little bit about what the supervisor as the change agent. Then we're going to talk about supervision and coaching, and then think about some next steps. So a very quick, simple agenda. And before I kind of jump into some of the content, I just want to make sure nobody has any questions or things they're wondering about. Okay, awesome. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is leadership styles. And this is just a very kind of quickie review of some things that I've been thinking about. So there's a variety of leadership styles that you can use in your approach to your work. And before you start thinking about your role as a change agent, before you start thinking about your role in supporting coaching in your system, I just want to quickly review some different ways that people might approach leadership. And, just to start kind of getting our juices rolling and thinking. So one example of leadership might be using a power approach, which is one where you're kind of, I'm the decider, things are going to I'm going to structure everything for you, my decisions are the ones that are going to guide how we move through. So this is one example. Another method of leading is relationships, where you kind of will develop strong positive relationships with your team, and you'll use that relationship to help motivate people and move people forward. Another leadership method, and as I'm talking about these, think to yourself, which of these really resonate with me? Which are things that I do a lot? Politics. So this is kind of where you start figuring out who do I need to know and how can I kind of use relationships, not necessarily in a negative tone, but really when I need to kind of talk to somebody about making some kind of change, who's the person that I need to work with and making those relationships that are helpful. Another method is by example, which is kind of what we've talked about, we'll be thinking about today. I'm going to do the things that I want my staff to do. So this is how I'm going to approach the leadership. Another example would be sharing goals. So we're going to sit down and have some shared goals and shared mission. Another example is persuasion. So trying to help people see why this is going to be beneficial to them and convince them that let's reason through this. I'm going to kind of sell it to you. So that's another example. And then finally, there's charisma. So I'm going to just charm you into this. And all of these approaches are viable and useful, and when I've been a leader, have used them in different settings. But there's always going to be one that kind of resonates with me. So what I'd like to do right now is just for everybody to take a moment, and we're going to send you a poll, and we want you to think a little bit about which leadership style tends to kind of be the one that you lean towards, the one that you tend to use most often. Because what we'll do is continue thinking about what this looks like as you think about yourself as a change agent.
We're going to give everyone a few more seconds to answer, and then we'll upload the results so everyone can see and we can go over it. I am going to close the polling questions and then upload the results.
Thank you.
I'm curious. Ooh.
So it looks like relationships are a very powerful, or a common orientation that people take, and sharing goals. So that's going to be really interesting for us to think about as we move through the content, continuing on. Okay. So now I want to think a little bit about thinking of yourself as a change agent. So there's going to be a couple of steps that you want to think that you might take as a change agent within your system. So the first is building a vision and really trying to take the vision. And I think we have, I don't want to put words into anybody's mouth, but part of our vision is to implement coaching in our system. So how do you take this vision for implementing coaching and translate it in a meaningful way for your team? So that's going to be the first step. So if you've started doing that, great. If you haven't, you can start considering ways that you might take the vision and translate it for your team. The next is you're going to kind of be the catalyst for change. So you're going to take the initiative and be proactive in trying to adopt some new practices. And I think the one thing that's really important is there's this notion of risk. You're going to be taking a little bit of a risk and trying some innovative things and really encourage risk-taking in your staff, which allows for people to sometimes make mistakes and to learn from those mistakes and help people to develop in ways that might be different. So by serving as a catalyst, you're taking risks and you're allowing your staff to take risks and you're creating a safe space for that to happen. So that's the next stage of being the change agent. Oop. Sorry. I somehow skipped to supervision. We're not quite there. Because first, before we talk about supervision, we have to continue thinking about the change agent component. So the next is kind of creating some norms that support climate of coaching, and things those are things where you might be trying to think about, what does time look like for my staff? How is the supervision process going to be different if it is? Thinking about setting goals and expectations that might be a little bit different from how they are now. And then finally, apologies. I'm a clinician, not a technical person. And then finally, motivating and supporting staff, which we're going to we'll continue talking about more through the supervision process. So this is kind of a way to think about, all right, I've got my leadership style, and then I'm going to bring that to the table to make some change within my system. What I want to do now is just give you 2 minutes to reflect, and I'm going to let you go to a coffee shop right now, and I want you to think about, what did I say about my leadership style, and what have I just seen in terms of this change process of what my role is, and just consider how those two things connect and how what you do as a leader can promote change in your system. And the purpose of this is you're not going to share out. I just want you to have a moment to kind of reflect on some of the things that we're sharing. So I'm going to bring in the lunchtime buzz. If I can. I'll give you a minute. Bring yourself to the coffee shop and take a moment to reflect.
Miss Sam, could you turn the volume up a little louder?
Sure. You need a louder coffee shop?
Yes.
Okay. I know that's not a huge amount of time to reflect, but I just wanted you to have a moment to kind of think on these two things together and how they might interact. And I would encourage you to keep thinking about that and trying to be mindful about What is my style of leadership? When is it shifting and changing, which it's going to do? So, for instance, it might be we're introducing this new coaching process, and we really want to focus on sharing goals. And you might have a staff person who's coming in and saying, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And then you might have to turn to power to do that. And I think that's okay. I just want people to be mindful. Okay, so now the other component of being an agent of change is thinking about how you're balancing your organizational needs and the individual needs. So on the organizational side, you've got to get things done. You've got goals, you've got the system, it has to work. At the same time, you've got your staff, and you're trying to respect the rights of your staff, acknowledge their autonomy, give them a chance to kind of express their own way of approaching the work. So now what I'd like to do is try to think about how you can do that within your own system. So what we would like to do is we're going to give you a poll, and I'd like you to think about within your own state, what are some of the organizational goals that you have? And then I want you to spend some time thinking about what are some of your staff needs. And then we're going to have a chance to come together and talk about in ways that those things might connect well, and others where there might be some misalignment, and think about what you can do to address that issue. So take a few minutes to respond to the two questions, and then we can have some conversation with some hands raised.
We have less than 3 minutes remaining for the poll question before I close it out. Okay, we have 6 that have completed, and we have 9 that's also in progress of completing their short answers. Just to let you know, we will close in 1 minute. Okay, I am closing the poll. Thank you for all of those who have submitted their answers, and we will have the results posted here shortly. There is a lag time, guys, so thank you for your patience.
If you think of something that you didn't have a chance to put into the poll question, feel free to shoot it to us through the Q&A and we'll share it as well. Okay, I might need my reading glasses for this.
It is small.
Okay, so what we see here is that the first question, Tina, can you, some goals for your organization?
The first question is, what are the goals of your organization?
Okay, all right, I can see. So number one, it looks like people are wanting, the goal is to help clients become self-sufficient, introduce coaching across the organization, focusing now on providing supervisors with tools to encourage and training their staff, to serve families in the community, particularly to assist clients in becoming self-sufficient, to implement coaching skills so that our clients are motivated and given the correct tools to become the best they can be, to help NHEP participants to become work-ready, leading to employment and self-sufficiency, to support and encourage self-sufficiency of clients and improving quality of life, for our program coordinators to work with participants via coaching and being a positive role model, empowering program participants to become their own change agent with support, help needy families achieve self-sufficiency by providing financial assistance, supportive services, and case management, and to promote healthy family functioning, to implement motivational interviewing and coaching with our customers and to move them to improved outcomes and self-sufficiency. So there's a theme to continue to build strong and positive relationships among staff and consumers, to continue to create a holistic, family-focused coaching culture that leads to greater levels of measurable and sustainable economic self-sufficiency for all, to help our clients reach self-sufficiency and self-sufficiency. So that's some of the organizational goals that you guys have shared. In terms of some of the individual goals or needs of your staff, there's self-sufficiency, to help clients become self-sufficient. I'm looking just to see, is this the...
I think that's that's still the first question, right?
I thought I'm saying the same. Okay, so that was our list of organizational goals. Now let's take a look to see what the needs of your staff are and see how well those align with what the organizational goals are or where they might be a disconnect. So Tina, can you show us the second polling question responses?
Yes, it's actually here in front of you. It actually has the attendees who answered and their responses.
Oh,
the top part you read was for the organization, and the bottom is for the staff goals. It was two-part question.
It is. I got it. Okay, I didn't realize. Okay, my apologies. So it looks like to help clients become self-sufficient and to continue to build strong and positive relationships among staff and consumers, to help needy families. I'm not going to read all of them because to serve families within the community, to implement coaching skills so that our clients are motivated and given the correct tools to become the best they can be, to help participants become work-ready, leading to employment and self-sufficiency, and to support and encourage self-sufficiency of clients and improve quality of life. These sound like they're the same as what I just read. Sorry. Can you move down a little bit?
There we go.
There's the, okay.
Question 2. Yeah.
Apologies. Okay, stop right there. Great. Okay, so these are what your staff needs are. So that they need time, they need to have to stop. Hold on. Go back up. There you go. Stop right there. Perfect. Okay. So these are the needs of your staff. I'm sorry that I'm really hammering home the program needs by reading them through twice. So now let's look at what your staff needs. To have time, tools, and techniques to implement the goals, time, training, effective training, first of all, technology and training and positive support, and the need to be provided resources, training, and support from management, to experience coaching through supervision, and to be trained in the coaching model so they can confidently implement this model with program participants, sufficient training, supervisory support, technical support, and access to community resources to achieve the goals better than it can be done. Additional training for staff to become more comfortable and adept at implementing these additional techniques, monitoring, plan, and tools to provide feedback to frontline staff, clear and concise instructions about new initiatives, and more staff, more training opportunities for supervisors and staff. Okay, so you've shared with us what your organizational goals are and what they need. You've shared with us staff needs. Are there things where you see misalignment or places where you as leaders might need to think about a disconnect between what your goals of the organization are and what your staff needs are? So if you're noticing anything or you have concerns in your own community about a misalignment, raise your hand and share with me what you think and what your reaction is to that. And I'm sure at least one of you is thinking about something. So if you're shy, I will have to go through each state to encourage one person from each state to talk.
We can also use the Q&A box as well for those who may be using their headphones. They don't have audio to verbally speak. Just type in your question. I will be monitoring that box, and I will read it aloud. And I will let Ms. Samantha and Ms. Stephanie know when there is a question in queue.
So Sam, as people are thinking, I'm wondering, the thing that I felt like came up for me as I was hearing the differences between the two responses was the concept of time. So managing time when you have organizational needs, and then managing time for staff. Maybe just to get the ball rolling. That was what felt really loud and clear.
Yeah.
Right now, I don't have any hands up or any questions in the box right now.
I also, so I have a question or a comment from Angie, and she says, no clear plan or timeline of when the project will be implemented. So that can be challenging for staff needs, and it can be challenging also for organizational goals, if that's what the goal is. And that's what from frontline staff, she's saying. The other thing I'm noticing in terms of just alignment of organizational goals and staff needs, which I think is very positive, and hopefully we can convey this to teams, is that the goal is to promote self-sufficiency, and the individual goals for staff, it seems like there's a lot of conversation about training and support. And with that, I think those things will come together. So if you meet the needs of your staff by doing that training and that supervision, they're going to be better able to promote the organizational goals. So I think one of the messages here is to be thinking about what do my staff needs first, and that will then lead to meeting some of those organizational goals. Thank you, Angie, for your comment. Okay, so I'm going to hand it over to Stephanie, and I would encourage you to keep thinking about these things, about how am I going to align these two areas, because this is going to be an important part of the process. But I'm going to hand it over to Stephanie so she can start talking to you about that fourth column, which is the supporting your staff and thinking about supervision and staffing.
Yes, thank you, Sam. So what's great about the way that this is set up is I feel like Sam gave us a framework, like an overarching way of thinking about who we are and our leadership styles, and I made some comments about what I tend to fall towards, and I think it'll start to illuminate where I come from too in terms of coaching as a supervision practice. And so my hope for the rest of this webinar is that we get to talk about what exactly does coaching look like in a supervisory relationship, and what are those really concrete things you could be doing in that supervision meeting that translates into the staff's meeting with their participants. So to get us started in thinking in this way, I would like to hear from you how you define supervision. And that can be how you define it currently as your practice stands within your agencies, or how you hope to define supervision moving forward as you're part of this EYES project. So as you'll see in the bottom corner, there's another poll question for you to just type in your answer. It doesn't have to be anything official, just the first words and thoughts that come to mind in terms of what you think comprises supervision.
Just so you know, there is a box for you to write your answer. On the far right, you will see an arrow box. Just make sure you scroll all the way down so you can begin typing your answer. I'm going to give you guys 10 more seconds, and I will go ahead and close the poll.
Thank you, Tina. Oh, great. So we've got some good responses here. So it looks like we've got working with staff to help achieve goals and move forward, and that's great, Tina, right there. Awesome, thank you. And then parallel process, I may have thrown that right in there. Providing feedback to staff on how they're performing and progress to goals. A provider of guidance, leadership, motivation to staff and clientele alike. This sounds very in line with one of the goals that was mentioned from the states in thinking about motivation and momentum, and we'll talk about that too. So guiding staff, motivational leadership, helping individuals self-reflect, and thereby increasing their self-awareness as it pertains to personal and professional growth. These are all very well written and thought out supervision goals. Supervises the unit and monitors activities. Time for worker and supervisor to meet, to update one another, to brainstorm strategies. Training, motivation, those that guide me and those I guide. Oh, so thinking about bidirectional supervision too a little bit. Mentoring, using mentoring and coaching potentially interchangeably in this instance. And supervision is leading and guiding to learn to reach the designated goals and includes encouraging, guiding, and redirecting if necessary, more guiding and listening and remodeling. Influence, not authority to get tasks done. So when we talked about what Sam was saying with the organizational needs or the agency needs and the staff needs, how do you balance having that relationship with the staff and not overburdening with the administrative side of things, and not using that power of your leadership all the time. Supervision is basically leading a unit to accomplish a specific goal in communication and organizational skills. Okay, so we're starting to hear some of the leadership styles that people have too that weren't necessarily mentioned, but organizational and communication styles. Having a common vision, so almost like a mission statement for your team of staff potentially. This is great. So this is a very comprehensive list of the way that we can start to think about what supervision practices are. And so as we move on, and Tina, we can move on to the next slide. Thank you. As we go through that, I think what all those answers really demonstrate is how complex supervision is and how multidimensional it is. So we can hold that in mind and think about how we balance those different demands and those expectations we have for ourselves as supervisors. So the way that I like to think about supervision is I'm grounding us in a definition. So the definition I have is supervision is a place where both parties are constantly learning, and to stay a good supervisor is to return regularly to question not only the work of the supervisees, but also what you yourself do as a supervisor and how you do it. So a few themes that come through this is constantly learning, right? Growth mindset, the fact that you're all engaging in this process with eyes because you want to bring a coaching perspective into your agency practices. And that means that you are ready for change and that you are open to learning and know that learning is a part of this process. And part of that is creating that motivation for staff to also feel that way, right? And this return regularly to question, the way that I think about coaching, kind of my number one word that feels synonymous to coaching is the word curiosity. So in a coaching relationship, it's not about exerting expertise all the time or exerting that power. It's trying to equalize that power dynamic in the coaching relationship and to have moments of curiosity or continuous curiosity in your practice. So if you want to answer with some type of advice, because we all have lots of great advice, can we offer in another question just to see if the person that we are coaching has an idea for how to solve their own problems or has ideas for how to start solving their own problems. And now I'm speaking from a perspective of working with participants or customers, but that extends to the supervisory relationship, right? How can we empower our staff to feel confident in solving the problems that they have or the areas that they want their customers to grow in? So hopefully that's a good way to ground how we're going to talk about supervision today. So you saw a little sneak peek of this slide, so now you get to understand what this slide is. So when we think about supervision, the term that I threw in there during that poll is parallel process. And that really grounds the way that I think about supervision, especially from a coaching perspective. So if we want our customers to feel like they have agency over their goals that they're setting and thereby have higher goal achievement rates, right? There are things that they want to achieve for themselves and their families. They want higher paying jobs or they want to move to a better home for their families. The coaches are motivating them to get to that place and holding them accountable for that change and also creating an environment in which the customer is regulated and feels like they can think through those very complex longer-term goals with the coach in order to build those skills over time, right? So if that's the expectation we have for our staff, then our supervision practice needs to create a space in which we're also creating regulation for our staff. So here we talk about co-regulation, and the way that regulation is and self-efficacy is built is through that co-regulation, through that back and forth. So I am staying calm and regulated in my interactions with my staff, and in return, my staff are more likely to respond in the same way. And then we're talking through cases together, and that is then modeling how I might respond in that case situation, and how the staff person can then utilize those skills to then use those in practice with their customer. So when we did the polling question on the leadership, I noticed that I was drawn to the leadership of by example. And I think the reason that I was drawn to that leadership component is because when I think about supervision, I'm thinking about how my supervision session with staff so much models and helps staff process how they can then utilize those same skills we use in practice or in our supervision practice into their meetings with staff. So I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense why I gravitated towards that, because I had the specific coaching supervision hat on when I was thinking about answering that question. So, so if we recognize that the supervisor relationship is the place for skill development, then positive modeling and intentionality in the way that we respond to our staff is so crucial. So that's what this co-regulation, I guess, hexagon as opposed to circle, demonstrates here for us. So this is a slide that I think many of you have seen at this point, but it's something that we like to think about for coaching, which is called the green edge of the wedge. It's a little bit of a catchy title, but the idea is that, you know, similar to the concept of co-regulation, is that in all of our coaching sessions, by association supervision, they're goal-oriented, right? There is always an underlying goal for the work that we do with customers, because if for nothing else, it's that they have a certain amount of time that they can spend with us, and we want to have them set up for success, that they don't need our services or our benefits anymore. And so even if it's not verbalized, that undergirding goal continues to exist, and then hopefully in your relationship, you're building more personalized goals that feel more important to the participant, and therefore there's greater momentum and motivation there. But so if that is our recognition that all of our meetings are goal-oriented and supervision is too, then more specifically, over time, we're building the skills to continue to remain goal-oriented. So in those first interactions, we might be more in this red zone, this crisis management zone. And the hope is that through our continued meetings, we are lessening the amount of time spent on crisis so that we can increase the amount of time spent on goals and planning for goals. So what does that mean for supervision, right? It means that if I am sitting in supervision with a staff person and there's just a customer that really affects my staff person, and I notice whenever they talk about that customer, they're getting very heightened, and I notice their almost anxious tendencies that they are describing of the participant is coming through for them. So, oh, the customer has so much stuff going on, and I don't know how to manage them, and every single time it's a different crisis, and I don't know how to continue, right? You notice that my pace of my voice sped up. I started animating, I started moving. So in that moment, as a supervisor, I might say that I noticed that their affect change as they're describing the participant. And how do they notice their shift in the way that they're responding to that participant, and what that then means for their coaching session? Does that mean that they're raising their voice and raising their speed at which they are processing the events to stay more in that crisis management? If so, can they use some skills to bring the energy of the room back to a place in which you're able to stay goal-oriented, right? So this is our concept for trying to stay in this green edge, this goal attainment space. And so recognition that this is not a linear process in supervision or in our meetings with customers, right? This shows a linear process with these two triangles, but it's very much an up and down. In some meetings, there's more of the red, in some, there's more of the green, but that you are trending towards more time spent in goal attainment. So what does this really mean? I know a lot of you in your goals for today's session said you wanted to walk away with really something tangible, something you can walk away with and really start implementing. So hopefully the rest of this helps you get to that place. So we have what we call a roadmap to coaching. So there are different elements in coaching that we think really remind us how to maintain a coaching perspective in all of our work with people that we work with. And so this is just a better way of visualizing than giving you another circle, so to speak. But, right, we all have a roadmap, some goal that we have at the end of the road that we want to get to. And each of these signs, there's 5 different signs, so 5 different components to coaching. They're not necessarily you do one before the other. They are just all different parts of our journey in the coaching relationship that allow us to continue moving forward in our work with customers or also with our staff. So we are going to walk through each of these different components of coaching, and we're going to look at it from both what happens, what does this component mean for direct service work, so between a caseworker or coach and their customer, and what does it mean for the relationship between the supervisor and the supervisee. And so, of course, we're talking about supervisees who are working directly with customers. So let's get going on that, shall we? We're going to go down this road together. So the first one is building trusting relationships. So my hope is that we can get a little interaction as we go through these, because I would bet that you all have excellent insight into each of these components of coaching. And so I think the best way is to use the chat box feature just to type in some responses. So let's start with what it looks like for direct service staff. So building trusting relationships. What does that mean? If you were to tell a staff person, you know, one core component is that you build trusting relationships with your customers, what are some ways that your staff would get to that point in building a trusting relationship? And Tina, if things pop up for me, do I just see it automatically?
You should be able to see if someone did write a question. I do have a chat highlighted. Let me see if this is someone. Let's see. No, I don't have anything right now as far as in the Q&A.
Okay. So maybe I'll go through this first one to kind of show you some examples, and then maybe the rest of the coaching components will make a little more sense. So here's some examples. So what does it look like for direct service staff to build trusting relationships with customers? So believing in participants and helping them to see a brighter future for themselves. Understanding a participant's deeply held values, their long-term goals, their motivation. So for those two, those feel kind of large and ambiguous. So ways in which you can demonstrate that you believe in participants, right, are things like head nodding, right? I've been doing a lot, smiling, allowing them to dream a bit in that session with you, believing in them that they can do it by saying that you believe that they can do it, right? These are things you can say to the people that you work with. Tying them into program goals, so there are requirements that come with any of your programming, and trying to tie in what their interests are for themselves to move forward as it connects to your program goals, and then creating momentum by highlighting the positive. So if I have a coach that I work with, and each session I know that the coach is going to hear from me how things have been going and is going to recognize the hard work that I've done, I am more likely to have a trusting relationship and want to go back to that person than if I feel like there's an agenda that I need to make sure that I check off every single time, and it's kind of a, like, did you do this, did you not do this, and moving on, right? So what does that mean for extending into our supervisory relationship? The sun is out today in Boston. So when we look at a supervisory relationship, we have to believe in our staff and help them see their own future. So, you know, all people want to grow in some way. So currently they're caseworkers at, you know, your agency. And where else would they want to grow? What else is it that they hope to do? Do they want to be a supervisor one day? If so, what is it that you did to get to the place in which you're a supervisor? What is it that's exciting to them about the work that they're doing or work that they hope to do in the future? Understanding their own values. So we all come to this work for a reason. And how can we both appreciate that journey that they took to get to this place, recognize that, use that supervision, and allow them to also separate from their own experiences of that, what they're seeing with the customers. So we're talking a little bit about boundaries. And always highlighting the positive. So at Empath, we talk about glimmers. We like to say, you know, what are some glimmers when you don't have those? So when we were talking about needs for things that we're reporting on and always focused on outcomes, how do we recognize those things that aren't necessarily in our outcomes? So someone hasn't achieved a goal yet, but here are all the things that they've been doing, that they've been working really hard towards to get towards that goal. Same thing happens with with staff. So this is how we think about the parallel process, right? So if I want a staff person to build a trusting relationship with their customers, then I, in turn, need to be building a positive, trusting relationship with my staff people. So let's go to the next one. So self-assessment and goal setting. So often we have assessments that come with our programming, things that are required by funding structures to exist. So what I'm asking, I specifically am saying self-assessment, so we want some kind of component in coaching that comes directly from the customer or from the supervisee in this supervisor relationship. So how does a caseworker help create a space for self-assessment and goal setting in their relationship with their direct service staff? There's a pretty easy gimme, I think.
Again, if you don't have audio, you can use the Q&A box only. Do not use the chat box. Use the Q&A box to submit your question. That way we will see who has submitted a question.
So if one of the things that you do in a direct service relationship is use a self-assessment, right? Great, okay. Allow them, so Alita, you had a comment that says, allow the client to express themselves, ideas, goals, and dreams. Excellent, right? So you're really talking about embodying what a self-assessment is. So rather than saying, give me the information that I need in order to have you be in my programming, you're really trying to understand, where is it that you want to be going, and how can I then, by hearing where you want to go, help you get there. So other comments are active listening and allowing clients to express themselves, and then other questions like, how have you been since the last time you met? So you're building in the thread of building trusting relationships into the self-assessment. So all of these comments lead into the fact that the goal setting that you're doing comes from the participant. They are articulating what it is that they want to be working on, rather than some of the goal setting that can happen are these outcomes-based goal setting processes that happen. So how can you recognize program outcome pieces that need to occur, and what is it that the participant wants to do to get to that point, right? So when we talk about supervisory relationship, the way that extends is that staff can also have a self-assessment. So what are their strengths? How would they like to grow? Everyone loves doing self-assessments all the time, right? We do, at Empath, we'll do executive function self-assessments, we'll do learning style questionnaires, and it's always just interesting to learn a little bit more about yourself, and then how does that then extend to how your supervisor learns maybe, or what your supervisors or the rest of your team's strengths are, and how can you support each other by recognizing the strengths, or maybe even the challenges that you can support each other in. Engaging staff in goal setting. So one example is having in your annual reviews, there are goals that staff set for themselves, and not just that they need to maintain a certain number of active cases, or that they, something related to more outcomes measurement, but what's a way that a staff person wants to grow? So one area that might be important is that they realize that they've been having a large caseload with young families, and they don't feel as strong in maybe child development areas. So maybe something they want to do is find a webinar on child development, or find another training opportunity for them to just brush up on their understanding there, because they're really interested in it, and engaging in that learning process strengthens them as a coach. So those are some examples. Okay, accountability and follow-up. I'm going to switch us up and give you the direct service staff response, and then see what you think for supervisors. So accountability and follow-up. We have to prove that we mean what we say we're meaning. We're repairing relationships that have occurred before we walk through the door, right? So there are sometimes positive or negative relationships that customers have had with people like me. So they might associate me with someone they've met with in the past, and potentially that relationship wasn't as trustworthy as I'm hoping this relationship will be. Or maybe it was really trustworthy, and I need to prove that I can be just as trustworthy and reliable. So I need to follow through on the actions that I say that I'm going to do. I say that I'm going to check in with you in a week. I better check in with you in a week. Another strategy we use is to send summary emails or have a summary write-up about what we discussed in the meeting so that it's very clear what they want to be working on before we meet next and what I'm going to work on. Checking in on action steps for goals or meaningful events. So this loops back to the other comment from the last piece, which was to ask them how they're doing and how their momentum is going, and not bring them down to say, oh, you didn't achieve an action step, but rather to say, you know, what can we do together to help you get to the goal that you set before? So this is what happens in a direct service staff and a staff person's and a customer's relationship. What does that mean for a supervisory relationship? How do you build accountability and follow up with your staff?
Ms. Stephanie, I do have some comments in the Q&A box. I have Ms. Ruthie Lieberman. She put the supervisor should keep notes on supervision and follow up with staff members. We talked about last time. Tell how it's going for you.
Yeah, so remembering the things that were talked about in the last meeting, showing that you care, that you remember, and following up on those. The other comment I'm seeing is to set and keep clear expectations and progressing in the conversation about professional development. So, and this comes from Wendy in New Hampshire. So you're referencing that you're expanding beyond just what's happening in that customer staff person relationship, but also, you know, what is it that they want to be working on in professional development? And if you run out of time, it can be really hard to follow up on that, right, Wendy? So recognizing that you want to make sure to make time to address those pieces for the staff. The other piece that's coming from Marcia is to keep promises and admit mistakes and correct them. Yes, thank you for bringing that up. I think that is so crucial, and it's helpful to see that we're human too and that we make mistakes so that we don't have unrealistic expectations, right? So very much in line. So providing a consistent time and space for supervision. So making sure that if schedules change, you still keep the frequency of your supervision practice that you say you're going to keep. Following through on things that you discussed. This is great. And following through on goals. Excellent. I think I'm going to do the same thing where I'm going to talk about what this looks like in direct service and see what you say for supervisory. So problem solving, strategizing, and providing expertise. So this is a careful dance in coaching, because what we don't want to do is be the ones who are always giving advice or exerting our power or our what we think is right in those moments. So it's more of an exploratory, what are solutions you might have for the problem. Eliciting their knowledge about past experiences, and offering expertise when it's relevant, right? If you're holding on to information about how to fill out FAFSA, we don't want to not tell them. We can say we have a resource if they're wanting that resource and share that resource with them. So what does that mean for the supervisory relationship? So for customers, we want to build that sense of self-efficacy and confidence and goal-directed behavior. So if that's what we want from customers, what does that mean in supervision? Okay, so one idea for what this looks like with staff is to not tell them what to do and ask them what idea they have. So what you can potentially do in supporting the way that you get to that is using a motivational interviewing training. So motivational interviewing can be great for, they use the concept of ORs, right? So you're going to ask open-ended questions and affirm the way that what they've shared with you. So in that way, you're not giving them the answers, but you're processing processing through them. Other things are to allow staff to explore options for potential solutions and provide guidance when asked. Exactly, perfect. So that actually goes right in line with motivation interviewing in that if you're going to offer guidance, you ask for permission. So I have a great resource for you. Would you want to hear that from me? Thank you. And listening and not jumping in to solve their problems. So using past experience. So that's a careful line. If you have past experience to share with them and you're waiting to hear what they have to say in terms of how they might solve that problem, and being open if their solution to the problem is different from your own. So looking to see if that person needs more support, so exploring maybe what kind of support they might need and following through on that. Acknowledging what's working, and we be willing to let go of what's not. Trust staff to explore. Great. This person and I are on the same page. So sometimes when we've been doing things for a long time, it's really hard for us to take a step back and think about new ideas. So although we're talking about problem solving, it goes back to that building trusting relationships, right? Bidirectional trust. I trust you, my supervisee, that you might have some ideas that I don't know before, and I'm open to hearing those and talking through those together. This is great. So very much in line. It's like you have seen these notes before, but you're really just eliciting from them what their past experiences have been and what their ideas are before jumping in. So this is excellent. So finally, our last one is goals orientation. So thinking back to the green edge of the wedge, if our hope is for all of our interactions to remain in this goals attainment space, our sessions, our meetings need to be set up accordingly, right? So in coaching with direct service staff and with their customers, we're helping participants to stay focused on the big picture. So that might mean that every time you bring that self-assessment back to say, you know, this is the overarching goal that you set for yourself and for your family, to anchor the purpose of your meeting. So I had one participant who we learned pretty quickly to stop asking open-ended questions of how are you, because we would get all of the venting effect. So instead, it became a, you know, this is the self-assessment, this is what we said we were going to talk about today. Is that still what you want to make sure we talk about today? And then we would have extremely productive meetings with her. And she really appreciated that way of having our meetings go. So responding and not reacting to crises. So, and that goes back to that co-regulation piece. So how do I maintain that regulation space as the staff person to stop from heightening the crisis that's being shared by the participant, and redirecting participants back. So some different strategies people use sometimes are timers, or to say, you know, I hear that things didn't go the way that you expected this last week, and there were other things you were hoping to cover today. So could we spend like X number of time talking through what happened in the last week, and then the rest of the time talking about what we had said we wanted to talk about? Does that sound like a plan? So coming up with ways to divide the meeting so it can be a use of agendas as well. So if that's what it might look like with participants or customers, what does that mean for the supervisory relationship? I already have a fast typer in that says set and stick an agenda. Look, that's great. So an agenda for supervision meeting. So, and this goes back to another one of our comments earlier about how important it is to have consistent supervision. And I know it can be really challenging from a time perspective to make space for that and to continue to hold that as the priority, but it really sets the stage for how that translates into their coaching sessions with their customers. So, this is a great idea. So if you have an agenda for working with your supervisee, that at the top of that agenda, you always have the goals that the staff person said they have for themselves. So I personally have found it difficult to remember the goals that they have set for themselves and to remember those professional development goals. And so that's a great idea, having their goals at the top of the sheet to remind and stay anchored in what they want to work on. Thank you for that. And then the other comment is to check in and see how they're doing with the goals they've set for themselves, right? So making space for that, because you as the supervisor are demonstrating that you care, or the supervisor, sorry, demonstrating that you care about the goals that they've set for themselves, and that you're holding them accountable for those, and that although there are administrative tasks you have to talk about, of course, and you want to process through maybe some tough sessions, that you still want to remain in that goal-oriented space of how do they want to continue to grow as employees. So here, helping them stay focused on the big picture, responding, not reacting. Let's see. It's important. The other comment I just got is it's important to think things through before responding. Yes, have an agenda to serve as a guide, never criticize, but encourage to pursue goals. Great. Yeah, so having, I call it unstructured structure. So you have structure to what you're hoping to achieve, but you have to be open also to some of the ebbs and flows of a natural conversation and to continue to hold motivation and momentum present. Providing positive feedback on improvements noted since last supervision is the other piece. Yes, excellent. So if you're noticing positive feedback or you're noticing things that they've done well and you're making space for that, then how much more motivated might your staff be to do more of that to continue to get that positive feedback? There's been interesting research to look at how much more of an effect it has when you acknowledge the positive things that someone has been doing. So whether that's through a staff email shout out or with a card, how extremely motivating that is for staff to continue doing their work. So I personally had a supervisor who would give me cards, and all I needed was the cards just to say congratulations or you worked really hard this week. They really made a difference in how I continue to maintain forward momentum. And so that example and this positive feedback piece, I think really nicely encapsulates all of the different perspectives for coaching. So just to bring us back to our first image, because I think it's just helpful. Oh, I went too fast. There we go. So here's our full roadmap. So we just went through each of these components. And you notice that as you were providing ways that you can do this in your supervisory relationship, they all connected, right? They were very similar trends and threads that you had for how you can set up your supervisory relationship. And really the take-home message is that it's all a parallel process. So everything that's happening between the staff person and the customer is happening in your supervision session, and how much of a difference and how much of a support it is to be able to have that space in supervision to treat it in the same way that they're going to be doing with their customers. So with that, I'm going to bring us back up to speed, Sam, and then turn it over to Sam. Sorry for this very quick walkthrough there, to give us our next steps. If only I could do this.
She has control.
Okay.
Oh, great. Thank you. Also a clinician and not a technician, so.
Okay, so in the spirit of parallel process, what we would like to do now is give you a safe space and a place to think about some goals for yourself. And so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to pretend, put my supervisor hat on and just pretend for now that I'm a supervisor in a TANF setting. And I'm going to walk through some steps that I'm going to take to set some goals. So if we look at the top here, it says what I want to achieve. So I'm imagining I'm working in a setting and we've got a lot going on, and I realized recently that I haven't spoken to my supervisors in a while, and I don't really know what motivates them. So I've decided that my goal, I'm going to write it down right here, is to strengthen my relationship with my supervisees by better understanding what motivates them. Now, in order for me to try and get to this, I really want to make a plan for what my next steps are going to be. So in the first column of this table, I'm going to make some notes of what my action steps will be. So the first thing I think I'm going to do is I'm going to send an email to every one of my supervisees. I've got 4 of them. So I'm going to make a list of their names, and I'm going to send them an email each individually. And I'm going to ask them to think about 2 questions. I think I'm going to ask them to think about, why did you choose this work? Yeah, that's a good question. And then the other one I think I'm going to ask is, what is one thing that excites you about this work? Yes, okay. That's going to be my first action step. I think I like it. Okay, so I'm going to write that down. And because, again, we're not technicians, we're clinicians, we don't know. If we really could do it fabulously, we'd be writing this out for you right now. But I'm not able to do that. Anyway, that's all right. And in my system, I'm going to make a note of how will I know this is done? Well, I'll have the email there, and who will follow up or help? I think I'm just going to put it on my to-do list. The second thing I'm going to do is set up a half-hour meeting with each staff person. Yep, I think that's a very easy action step. I'm going to put the date down, and I'm going to have put it in my calendar, so I'll check my calendar, and everybody's appointments will be in place. And then I think I'm going to do something really different. I'm going to schedule a room. We have a nice family room in our office, so I'm going to meet them in that room instead of in my office. So I'll put that as my next action step. And my last action step, I'm going to bring coffee and muffins, and that I will make a plan to do on the day off. Okay, so that was my quick model demonstration of me filling out a worksheet. So now, what I'd like you all to do is take a moment. I'm going to take you back to the coffee shop, and I'd like everybody to take 3 minutes to write down one goal that they would like to try out between now and our next session. And you can pull, Stephanie talked about a lot of different ideas of things that you could do, and it might be things that you've already done and you've just forgot about them and you haven't had time to pay attention to those kinds of things. It might be something that you thought, oh, that sounds amazing. I've never thought of that, and it's so obvious. I'd like to try it. And so what I'd like you to do is I'm going to, like I said, take you back to the coffee shop, give you 5 minutes to write down your goals, and then I would welcome anybody to share a goal that they might or something they might achieve, because this is a chance for you to talk to each other and share some ideas and brainstorm some ideas of some action steps. So this is, if you have a goal you want to share, this is your opportunity to get some creative ideas from your colleagues in other settings. So if I could figure out how to get to my
So in the interest of time, it's 3:29. So I do want to make sure that
are we all done?
So I just want to make sure that we respect everyone's time, because I know you're very busy. So I'm a half hour off. I think we can. That's okay. I think we can kick off the next meeting by hearing from people what goals they wanted to be sent. And if you are not sure about what goals to be setting, use your eyes coaches as people to bounce ideas off of, and they can connect with us to talk through some ideas too. But I do want to respect people's time. So.
Well, thank you
Stephanie,
for some reason I thought
I'm sorry, Stephanie, I just uploaded the goal sheet for the attendees to download. Just right-click, hover over this column here to show the form that I downloaded for you guys, and then you can have it for yourself. You can download it, save it, and print as many as you like.
And I apologize. For some reason I thought, oh, wow, we still have a whole half hour to go. And so I kind of threw that in off the cuff and then realized that that we don't actually have the time. But I do want to say that in our next session, you will have an opportunity to come back and share your goal and what you tried and get some feedback from your colleagues on how that went. So thank you for keeping me on track.
This is why we
and for anyone who's having a heart attack thinking we had more to go, I apologize.
So thank you, everyone, for your time. I think this was a really good start. I hope that this gives you things to just reflect on in true parallel process form and get ready for our next session in December. Please feel free to reach out to either of us or your eyes coaches in the meantime.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.